Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Recently, this site got featured on awards, and I've been seeing some cool effects that are integrated in the site. And I thought this effect would be a really nice and fun way of showcasing your works, your images as in a gallery, or anything that you find really cool and you want to showcase would be a really cool way of having like this. So when I refresh the page, you'd see that we have these images and these cards sort of rotating and animating in. But then as I keep scrolling, we have more stuff flowing in. So it's a really cool and amazing scroll trigger based animation, which isn't too difficult to create and is also really amazing. So this is what we will be building in this video. Now, before starting, I'll just be showing you what I have built and just so that you guys can get an idea of what we will be actually building. So let's refresh this page, and here it says my works, and we have these images, and then we have the title, small description. Then as I keep scrolling, we can see that we have more stuff coming in. They rotate and sort of ease in. So it's a cool way of showcasing your works, images, and other stuff. So yeah, this is also responsive. The source code of this is in the description, so you guys can download and play with that. And also the link to this website would be also in the description so that you guys can go and check it out. The deployed version of this would be in the description as well, so you guys can go and check for yourself. So without any delay, let's get started and let's learn to build this cool scroll trigger based animation. So here I'm in my index.html file when I have a bunch of stuff written. Now, first, let me just show you how it looks, and then I'll be explaining you what we have here. So here, as you can see in the browser, we have here a big title or a heading which says my works. And then here you have one card, which is technically your work. We have an image, we have a title, and a short description. Now, it's pretty simple. So we have a container div, which basically covers or contains everything. Then you have an h1, and then you have a works div, which contains all the different work that you have. As of now, we only have one work, which has an image, a p tag for the title, span for the description. Now this container has a max width of 1200 pixels, some padding, and is positioned at the center using margin and line. The reason for adding a max width is because if you're working on a monitor and if your screen size is pretty big, we don't want every work to basically take the entire width and be very large. And it doesn't look nice as well. So what we have is we have the max width as 1200 pixels. Anything more than that would basically contain everything to 1200 pixels. We have the h1. Now the font size of this is based off the viewport width, just so that it can be responsive even on small screens. The works take the entire width with width 100%, has a display flex, flex wrap as wrap, and a gap of 4 rem. Now the reason for adding flex wrap is because on small screens, instead of having two cards or two works, we only want to render one card at a time. Now, if you look at the work, which is the actual work that we have, is a bit tricky. I wouldn't say this is tricky, but a simple math calculation. So the width of each of the individual work is calculated based off its parent. So we take 100% of that and divide it by 2, which is 50%. But then again, we subtract by 2 rem. Why do we subtract by 2 rem? So what happens is when you have two works side by side, we don't want both of them to kind of get stuck one on top of other, or basically be at the very edges of one another. What we want is we want a space between, since we already have a gap of 2 rem, to basically take out that amount of space. What we do is we subtract 2 rem from each of the individual work. So what happens is in one single row, if you subtract 2 rem twice, it's going to give the 4 rem of space, which is enough to add the gap between each of the individual works. Then for each of the individual work, we have the flex as column and a margin top of 4 rem, just so that when you're on mobile or even on desktop, it doesn't get stuck to the heading or to the work that is just above. We have the image within the work, which is width 100%, aspect ratio of 1 by 1, which is basically means that you want the image to be as a size of a square, object fit as cover, just so that the ratio of the image or the image doesn't get squeezed. And then you have some styling for the P and then the span. We also have a media query of devices less than 768 pixels. Technically for mobile screens, we want the work to have a width of 100%, meaning that we don't need two works at the same row. We want only one to take up the entire space. And that's basically it for the CSS and HTML. Now, if you notice, I already have GSAP, scroll trigger, and Lenis added. Let's add our script tag and let's get this thing animated. But before doing that, let's add the dummy works before. When I save, we can see that now our site is pretty filled up with these dummy stuff, and we have around 20 works. Now to get started, we start with the script tag, and then whenever you visit a site, the first thing that fires off is this DOM content loaded event listener. Everything runs within this. So what we're going to be doing is inside of this, we're going to add our Lenis scroll to our scroll trigger. Now this is a pretty standard code that when you go to Lenis and when you click on the documentation, it takes you to the GitHub. You scroll down and then you see GSAP scroll trigger. You copy the code and then just paste it here. That's basically it. So this basically tells scroll trigger to update its value whenever Lenis is triggered or whenever the scroll is getting triggered. And then GSAP takes the frame and then, binds it together. So that's basically what we have for the scroll trigger. Now we will start the actual stuff. First thing that we do is we grab all the different images of the work and store it in the works. Then we also create a variable to check if this is desktop or not. Now the way we check it is we check window.innerWidth, and if this is more than 768 pixels, then this is a desktop, else it's not. And then we take all the different images from all the different works, we run a for each, and then inside of that, we get each work as well as the index of that. And then what we do is using GSAP set method, what we do, we grab the image and we rotate it. Now the rotation isn't simple. So what we do is, if you have seen the finished one, you might have seen that the left and the right image rotate in a different way. So the way we do it is we calculate, we grab the index, we check if this is an even one or an odd one. If this is an even one, then rotate it by -50 degrees, else rotate it by 50 degrees. And then it's not a simple rotation. We want the rotation to have the transform origin as center. And then we also push it down along the y-axis, but this isn't that simple as well. We check if this is the desktop version, meaning if you're playing it on a desktop, then you want to basically pull down each of the image by 500 pixels, else by 350. And when you save, as you can see that we have these stuff getting pushed and we have these rotated. Now, we also need to add opacity of 0, just so that initially we don't want any of these to be visible. And we're ready. Now, let's add scroll trigger within this for each of the individual images, and let's start seeing the animation. So we have our scroll trigger. It takes in each of the individual image as the triggering point. It starts off at, first it checks if this is a desktop. If it's a desktop, then it takes the top position of the image and 100% of the entire viewport. And if this is not a desktop, meaning if it's on a mobile, it takes top portion of the image and 120% of the screen position. Now when I save, nothing actually works, is because even though we have this getting triggered, we're not actually doing anything. So for that, first let's bind our scrolling and the animation together using scrub true. And then whenever the element enters this specific range, what we want to do is we want to trigger our animation. So since we already rotated the images and also translated it along the Y and also had it opacity 0, what we want to do is we want to remove all these stuff. So we have gsap.to, we target each of the image, we have rotation as 0, Y 0, opacity as 1. Let's save, and now let's see. When I refresh, we can see the animation happening, and as we keep scrolling down, we see the works coming in. It looks pretty nice. Now, this isn't the best that we can do. Let's add a duration and let's add an ease effect. Now, when I go top and refresh, it looks even better. Now, if you've seen the final one, you might have noticed that not both of these images in a row come in together at the same time. So what we can do is we can add a delay. Now, this delay would only be applied on desktop, since on mobile, we're having only one work at a time. So this delay would only be on a desktop. So to check on desktop, we have this is desktop. Now, if this is a desktop, then you want to check if this is the even one or the odd one. Now, if the index when divided by 2 results with 0 as the remainder, meaning it's an even one, then you don't want to have any delay. Else, you want to have a delay of 0.25 seconds. Meaning, if it's the first one, do not add any delay, but add the delay on the second one, which is the right one. And then, if it's not a desktop, don't add any delay at all. And now when I save it, let's go up, refresh, and now as you can see that we have a bit of delay between the first and the second one. Let's scroll down and let's see. Pretty cool. So this is it for this video. Hope this was fun and hope you guys learned something really cool and amazing. And the source code of this would be in the description, as well as the deployed site. Now you guys can go and check it out and have fun. Now it was a really fun and easy way of recreating this masterpiece. Now I really liked the website. Maybe in future I'll be replicating or trying to create some other stuff that are in there in this site. But yeah, that's it for this video. Meet you guys in the next. Till then, bye bye, take care, and peace.